So along that period of time, we also decided that we needed to be planning for the future. And in about 2008, we decided that I was not a very good public relations person. I didn't do marketing very well. I hated asking for money, but knew a little bit about business. So we started opening thrift stores at that time in order to raise our own money. Another thing that happened at about that time was that I began to realize that I had been already in this field of work longer than most people survive. And it's a really high burnout kind of a field. A lot of people just don't make it. They have to change jobs. And so I started doing some personal investing because I didn't feel like I wanted to have a backup plan for me personally. If I reached the point where my heart just wasn't in the ministry, the work, that I could step aside, because it's really not fair if your heart is not in this type of work for you to stay around just because you need money. So I started investing in real estate, and ultimately that allowed me ultimately I was correct, because along about 2014 or 15, I began to experience some depression, really. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was suffering from vicarious trauma. I had spent years by that time just being really deeply involved with the lives of the kids and seeing all the things that they had gone through, and it bothered me, and I would read these terrible psychological reports and social reports of what these kids had gone through, and I began to get burned out. I was suffering from vicarious trauma. So I started to think about how I would transition the ranch into some other hands. And so the personal investing was taking place, and then I was putting together a team that I could hand the ranch off to. So in 2014, I began to realize I needed to bring some people in to help. I was just working myself frazzled. We were running 2 thrift stores, 2 ranches. I had always believed in the independent living program, which we started in 1997 to help the kids get out on their own, the older guys. And so I put together a team, recruited some folks, and put together a team, brought them in. And on April the 16th of 2018, we had a Zoom meeting, brought in my leadership team, and I had made a decision that I was going to hand the ranch over to Belinda Heaty, who was a person that I really trusted, who I knew had a passion, and she was a hard worker. And I trusted Belinda, and I really trusted very few people, but I trusted her. So my plan was to hand the ranch over to her, and then I had hired 2 more people to follow her up. So there was going to be a several-year succession, and the ranch would be in good hands for many years to come. And I put together a 13-month transition plan. We had this meeting on April the 16th. My plan at that time was to hand the ranch over to go through this 13-month transition, and then I was going to start a mentoring program, which was really still something that's dear to my heart. And we had our meeting, it went well, we initiated the plan, and then my daughter Allie came over to my house that night, and we worked on the logo for the mentoring program. Developed that, I'm feeling good. She leaves my house, and the next time I would see her, she would be on life support. The next morning, she was involved in a terrible accident. A car crossed the median on the interstate and hit her, and it broke 25 bones just upon impact, and we thought we had lost her. So I go to the hospital to find out. I went expecting to see a chaplain, and I found out my daughter was still alive. And she went through several months of rehabilitation, but it was one of those moments that really changed everything for us, because during the next 3 months, while she was fighting, and trying to get rehabbed, and she was in a trauma center and then a rehabilitation center. A series of events happened. First of all, the federal government passed a law called the Families First Act, and I found out about the law while I was at there with my daughter, and I read the law, and it sounded great, but then I realized that in typical federal government fashion, it was going to create lots and lots of regulations. Those regulations were going to require us to hire somebody. They were going to require a ton of paperwork and just things that really weren't going to help the kids in the long run. And I began to think, I don't want to do this. This is not what I got into this for. That happened, and then I get word that one of my star employees, who I thought was going to help carry us into the future, had a personal tragedy of their own, and they turned in their notice and quit. The next person in line, who was supposed to take over, his wife said, this job is too much. I don't want to lose you to this job, and he resigned while I was gone. And then I was there from April until July of 2018. Got home. The first day I walked into the office to check on Belinda, she was crying. And I'd never seen Belinda so upset. A 15-year-old boy had attacked her that morning. And the police had to be called, and it was a terrible scene. And that afternoon, the next guy in line, who was supposed to take over after Belinda, turned in his resignation. And I said, God, what's going on here? What am I doing wrong? A couple of nights later, I get a call from my son, who is in his early 20s at the time. He's standing in the middle of an interstate in Virginia. He's totaled a car, and my life just fell apart.